Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is your brother Mikael Ahmed Smith here from Qalam. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please donate to Qalam by visiting supportqalam.com. We love being able to share this content for free, and your donation ensures that we will always be able to do so. Each podcast we produce has thousands of listeners, so the support you give to this community in this effort brings immense reward. You never know who will benefit from your donation. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuna ila hubbik ya rabbil alameen. Oh Allah, we ask you for your love, Ya Allah. We ask you for the love of those people who love you, and we ask you for the love of those actions which cause us to gain your love, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-huda wal-tuqa wal-afafa wal-ghina, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you for taqwa and guidance, Ya Rabbil Alameen, wal-ghina. We ask you to make us solely dependent on you and not in need of anyone other than you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're continuing our class of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah ta'ala, who in this book, Jawab al-Kafi, is giving us the solution for our persistence on disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our persistence on ma'siyah or dhunub, sinning. He's giving us a what he calls a Jawab Kafi, a sufficient answer. And for those who were here last week, I mean, he's definitely throwing it down, mashallah. Last week, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, he basically explained that there are only 4 things that a person needs to protect. And if they protect those things, then they will be completely protected. They will be completely protected from shar, or evil. 4 things. What are those 4 things? Number 1 that he said was nadarat, what you look at. So we talked about how much we allow to come in our hearts, in our minds, and the primary place that those things come from is right here. So he explained in much detail how detrimental it is to our own selves, to our hearts, to our minds, to our spiritual selves, to just let our eyes look at everything without protecting what you let in. So he went through much detail talking about controlling the lahbat, or what you allow yourself to see. The next one is equally as important as my daughter walking around. Okay, be careful. All right. The next one that he talks about is directly connected to the first one. And I want to preface this with a hadith of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There's a well-known narration of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where he said, "Istahyu min Allah haqq al-haya," that have shame before Allah as He deserves haya. So the Sahaba, they said, "Inna nastahyi walhamdulillah." They said, "Ya Rasulullah, we have a lot of haya, alhamdulillah. We have a lot of haya," and they had haya like they were ashamed to be nude with no one around because Allah could see them. That was their high level of haya that Sahaba had. So they were like, "Yeah, Ya Rasulullah, we have haya." So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was like, "No, that's not what I'm talking about. وَلَكِنَّ الْحَيَاءَ أَن تَحْفَظَ الرَّأْسِ وَمَا وَعَى." Rather, true haya is that you تَحْفَظ الرَّأْسِ, that you protect the mind. Yo, Isa. Thank you. I want you to focus too, man. So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, وَلَكِنَّ الْحَيَاءَ أَن تَحْفَظَ الرَّأْسِ وَمَا وَعَى, that you protect the mind. وَمَا وَعَى. وَمَا وَعَى means what it contains inside of it. So Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah, he says the second thing out of the 4 that you have to watch is the khatarat, or the thoughts that come. So now what we're going to do is look in detail at Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah's breakdown of what he calls khatarat. Khatara is something that just comes to the mind. So he's talking about preserving the mind, preserving what you allow your mind to think about. Because the fruit of the tree come from what the tree is made out of. You don't worry about what fruit it produces, you just cut down the tree if the fruit are bad. Or the water that's coming into it, or whatever it may be that it's affecting. Picking the fruit off is pointless. You could do that all day. So what he's trying to do is start from the beginning. So the first thing he said was the gaze, protect the gaze. And now we move on to the second thing, which is al-khatarat, the thoughts that come to our mind. So he says, أَمَّا الْخَطَرَاتِ فَشَأْنُهَا أَصْعَبْ. He says, as far as these thoughts that come, this is very difficult. شَأْنُهَا أَصْعَبْ. As'ab means very hard to deal with, very hard to handle. فَإِنَّهَا مَبْدَأَ الْخَيْرِ وَالشَّرِّ. He says that these thoughts that come are the mabda. Mabda means the beginning of all khair, good, and all shar. Comes from right here. وَمِنْهَا. And he says, from these thoughts, يَتَوَلَّدُ الْإِرَادَاتِ وَالْهِمَمْ وَالْأَزَائِمْ. All of your intentions, all of your passions, and all of your set desires, azaim, like I gotta do it, I got to, I have to. All of that starts with the khatarat, he says. Yatawalladu means it's born from the khatarat that comes, right? Then he says, فَمَنْ رَاءَ خَطَرَاتِهِ مَلَكَ زَمَامَ نَفْسِهِ. He says, مَنْ رَاءَ. The word ra'a, in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُّكُمْ. Exactly. كُلُّكُمْ رَاء وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَئِيَّةٍ. Ra is a shepherd, because you do ri'ayah of the herd. So he says, man ra'a, he uses the same word of that hadith. Man ra'a khataratihi. Whoever is like a shepherd over their thoughts. Now the shepherd doesn't let the wolf in, because the wolf is going to tear up the flock. And another indication from the word ra'i here is that you're mas'ul. Right? Because the hadith said, kullukum ra' wa kullukum mas'ul. So everyone understand what I'm saying? So ra'i means shepherd, mas'ul means responsible. Sa'ala yas'alu. It means to be asked. So you will be questioned, meaning responsibility. So he uses the word here, man ra'a khataratihi. Whoever is a shepherd over their thoughts, malaka, they get control over the reins of their lower self. Like the horse has reins, and whoever's holding those reins with good control tells the horse which way to go. The horse is powerful. The horse has strength. But the horse is just, whoever has those reins, it just submits to it. So he says the same exact thing, that the one who watches over their thoughts and is very protective about what they allow themselves to think about, that person is as if they have the reins on their own self. Very powerful statement, right? Very powerful. وَقَهْرَ هَوَاهُ. And he says, and this person will have qahr, power over hawa. Hawa means that lower desire for something. Hawa is that feeling like I want something inside. In another verse, Allah says, أَفْرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Have you not seen the one who makes their hawa their God? So for some people, the hawa becomes the God. The hawa becomes the... Now what is hawa again? That lower desire that just comes over where you feel like doing something, and Nike's like, just do it. Just do it. Like, how many of us have been born listening to just do it? Like subconsciously, it's like, yo, I want to do it. Yo, just do it. Like, where'd that come from, yo? SubhanAllah. And then Jay-Z comes next, do as thou willst. SubhanAllah. Then YOLO comes. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, all these shayateen just like, one after the next. And you like, it's fire. Yeah, it's fire. Yeah, it's fire. Yo, he's spitting fire, yo. Uh-huh. You called it like it is. SubhanAllah. So he says, Allah says, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. For some people, that hawa is just too strong. I want to do it, I'm going to do it. But he says the one who controls the thoughts are the one who controls the hawa. So you have when I was reading this, right? And my wife's not here, is she? All right, she's not here. So I was reading this today, getting ready, and I was like, "Yo, this is." I was like, "Yo, I gotta go for a walk." She's like, "A walk? What's wrong with you?" I was like, "This is heavy stuff, man." And I just needed to like digest this. So everything we're gonna cover today, just take it slowly, write it down, take your notes. But like this stuff should have a deep effect on you. This like the way he's writing is just really profound. So he's saying you gain power over the hawa. And what I see happening is when we are bombarded by so many advertisements and so much media, we lose power over the khatarat. And once we lose power over the khatarat, we lost power over the hawa. Does that make sense, or was that too much Arabic? Okay, khatarat are thoughts. Right? I was like, yo, can you please speak English? Right? The khatarat are the thoughts, right? And look how he connected it. He said, once you control khatarat, thoughts, you gain power over the lower self, the hawa, the desires. But what I'm trying to point out now is with so much media bombardment, we don't get a chance to control the thoughts. So how would we ever talk about controlling the lower self? That's what I'm trying to point out here. So he says, وَمَنْ غَلَبَتْهُ خَطَرَاتُهُ فَهَوَاهُ وَنَفْسُهُ لَهُ أَغْلَبُ فَمَنْ غَلَبَتْهُ خَطَرَاتُهُ, whoever their khatarat control them. Like if you can't control what you think about on your drive home, like you're driving home from work or school, most of the time your mind is just everywhere. Whatever you pass by is what goes through your mind, or whatever's on the radio. Now that's not controlling khatara. That's letting whatever khatara come. So he says, وَمَنْ غَلَبَتْ خَطَرَاتُهُ, whoever their khatara are controlling them, like wherever the brain goes, it goes. He says, this person is overpowered, as we just said, by the nafs and by the lower self. And he says, وَمِنْ إِسْتَحَانَ بِخَطَرَاتِ, whoever takes this topic lightly, istahana means to think of it as something small. He's like, whoever thinks of this as something small, قَادَتْهُ كَسْرًا إِلَى الْمَحْلَكَاتِ, he says, it slowly drags you into destruction. Slowly drags you into destruction. Now continuing, he says, وَلَا تَزَالُ الْخَطَرَاتِ تَتَرَدَّدْ عَلَى الْقَلْبِ حَتَّى تَصِيرُ مُنًا بَاطِلًا. He says, listen to this. He says, khatara will constantly, these thoughts will constantly keep coming to the heart. Now here, by heart, what does he mean? He means consciousness. See, you have to understand from the Islamic paradigm, the aql, the thing that thinks, you could say, lies in the qalb. Lies in what? The qalb. So when he uses the word qalb here, he's referring to what's called in psychology the mind, not the brain, the mind. The mind. And there's a long debate, where is the mind? Okay, that's a whole different discussion, inshallah. But the point is that he's speaking about your mind, and he says khatarat will constantly come to the qalb, the mind, hatta tusira al-muna batilan, until it creates these false desires. These false desires. What he's talking about here, umniya. The word in the Quran is umniya. وَغَرَّتْهُمُ الْأَمَانِيُّ حَتَّى جَاءَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. Allah speaks about the people of hell as people who غَرَّتْهُمْ, they have been deceived by their amani. What is amani? They're like, I know who she is. I know amani. No, amani is something desired. It's something that you thought over and it becomes a desire that you want. Something sought after. That's what amani is. That's what it means. Something sought after. Amani. A hope or desire. But what he says, look at the psychology here. He says it goes from becoming what? Just a fleeting khatara, constantly hitting the heart, till it becomes amani batila. Batila means baseless. Like you're sitting there daydreaming about something you can never get. Never ever have. It's pointless. You're sitting there like, man, yeah, word. And it's pointless. It's never going to happen. That's why he calls it aman. No? That's why he calls it munan batila. And he says, Now, the example he gives is from the Quran. Listen to this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَسَرَابٍ بِقِيئَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً. Like, he says, like the oasis, that the person in the desert who's really thirsty starts to see water. Mirage, yes, thank you. MashaAllah, a better half. The mirage, right? The ones thirsty, they start to see that mirage and they're going after it, right? But when they get to there, they realize what? There's nothing there. So this verse says, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ, when the person arrives at the mirage, لَمْ يَجِدَهُ شَيْئًا, they realize there's nothing there, right? He says these false thoughts are just like the mirage. There's nothing there. It's a complete waste of your time. And then the verse goes, وَوَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ. But not only is it a waste of your time because you didn't get anything, but now the real reality strikes. That now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. Do you get the two realities? Look, the mind is taking you with these khatarat to this false hope. That he's relating to a mirage. But he's like, in reality, there's other real haqiqah. There's real life going on. And that's where your thoughts should be at. Not in this false hope. So you have two things going on. You have reality and this false thought that's coming. And the way the Quran puts it together is like this person chasing the mirage, going. They get there, there's nothing. But when they get there, they realize reality hit. فَوَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ فَوَفَاهُ حِسَابًا. They find Allah right there, hisab begins. So that's his example. He says now, وَأَخَصُ النَّاسِ أَخَصُ النَّاسِ himmatan. The people with the lowest himma, the lowest drive. This is a big problem with young men today. No drive to do anything. It's a major problem. Major problem. I don't feel like doing anything. Like no drive, no desire to do anything. And he says here, أَخَصُ النَّاسِ, the lowest type of people, himmatan, when it comes to their desire and drive. وَأَوْضَعَهُمْ نَفْسًا مَنْ رَضِيَ مِنَ الْحَقَائِقِ بِالْأَمَانِ, the one who is pleased with these fake thoughts over reality. So some people, it's like VR. You ever see that like, I forgot what movie it was, right? Where the guy is like, you see these people in VR, and like real life is going on, but they prefer VR over real life.
Ready Player One.
Yeah, there you go. Right? So like one thing is real life. But then you have VR, which is just like nothing really. It's this dream. It's just going virtual reality, right? And now it's really real. Like you can go to a basketball game now, I think now, right? Ajib, yo. So like what he's trying to say here is the reason why there's no drive is because of people being caught in this amani and stripped away from reality. Like this is so profound looking at where society is going. Like imagine if he could see people in VR today. Like what would he be saying? He'd be saying, I told you like 1,000 years ago that this would happen. So he goes, so these people lose all desire for anything else. Does everyone understand what he's saying here? The desire to do things, the desire to live, the desire to have contribute to life and be part of something. He's like, when people are stuck in amani, in these fake worlds of thoughts, they don't care about haqa'iq anymore, reality. Everyone get what we're saying? That's why you see when someone's addicted to video games, this guy doesn't want to do anything. Like all he wants to, and you're like, dude, you don't have real money. That's fake money, dude. Like, yeah, but I could buy a new gun, yo. Like, it's not a real gun. Like, let's go do something. Let's go help people. No. I want to come back into this amani, where I could just make a character and be that character and move away from reality. It's very interesting how he's pulling this together. And he says, he goes forward and he says that وَهِيَ قُوتِ النَّفْسِ الْفَارِغَةِ الَّتِي قَدْ قَنَعَتْ مِنَ الْوَصَلِ. He says these thoughts, these baseless thoughts that are just hopes and desires and there's no real reality to them, he says they are the nourishment for al-nafs al-farigha, the nafs that's not busy, that's not occupied. So in Christianity we used to say what? An idle mind is the devil's workshop. So he's like, This is where, in the farid nafs, the nafs that's idle, is where these thoughts come most prevalently. قَدْ قَنَعَتْ مِنَ الْوَصَلِ بِإِزَوْرَةِ الْخِيَالِ. He's like, this person doesn't care about really reaching something. Now they're just happy with the thought of reaching something not real. You can have, they've done this with relationships, guys. You can be intimate virtually, and people are paying for that. No, seriously. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, you guys are mad pious, yo. This virtual reality has even got to the point of sexuality, where people don't even care anymore about a real relationship and would be totally fine with a virtual relationship. That's exactly what he's talking about, that it gets to this point. That they are completely happy with just the thought of feeling it in comparison to actually experiencing life. Ready Player One, straight up, literally, right? SubhanAllah. I didn't think about that till you guys mentioned that. SubhanAllah. Okay, so he says, continuing on. He says, وَهِيَ أَضَرُّ شَيْءٍ عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ. These thoughts that come are the most detrimental thing to your spirituality. He says, listen, وَتَتَوَلَّدَ مِنَ الْعَجْزِ وَالْكَسَلِ. He says, these thoughts, where do they come from? Please write this down, remember it. They come from two things. Do you remember the 8 things the Prophet ﷺ sought refuge from? What were they? Al-Hamm wal-Hazan, which are grief and worry. Next two, Ajiz and Kasal. Ajiz means you can't do something. Kasal means you're too lazy. Jubn, cowardice and stinginess. And have too much debt and being overpowered by people. 8 things the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Allah, please protect me from these 8 things. You know what he says? All these thoughts come from 2 things. Ajaz and kasal. He's connecting it straight back. So let's talk about these 2 again, because some people weren't here.
Wait, how do you translate thoughts? You said they were called
Khatarat, he's talking about, so remember Sarah, there's 2 things here. There's khatarat, which are the quick thoughts that come. Everyone understand? Khatarat are thoughts that come. He says, but if they keep coming on the heart, then it creates another reality inside, which is this false desire. You're sitting there daydreaming that you're married to someone, and you're not, dude. You know what I'm saying, brothers? Brother over here yep, I know just what you're talking about. I need a guinea pig here. The young guys are easier, right? Because as you get older, you start to realize, reality sets. And when you're young, you're yeah, one day, right? SubhanAllah. So you understand what he's saying here? So he's saying that these thoughts come from 2 things, ajiz and kasal. Now let's talk about these 2 for a moment. Ajiz and kasal mean this. Sometimes you don't have the means to do something. I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, I don't have the means to do it, but I want to do it. That's called ajiz. I really want to do it, but I can't. Because of some circumstance, external. The Prophet ﷺ said, oh Allah, protect me from ajiz. That means I want to do it, but I can't. Now what is kasal?
laziness.
It's the opposite. You have all the means to do it, but you don't want to do it. You don't have, now you say, no, I want to do it. You don't really want to do it. The want, meaning the irada, is not strong enough. So kasal is that you got all the means to do it, but I don't feel like going. You got the car, you're up for Fajr, everything. You're up, you're awake, you're not even sleepy no more. Whatever, I don't feel like going. Kasal. Ajiz is like, oh, I want to go. Car broke down. Oh, I want to go. Masjid's too far away. Oh, I want to go. Understand? Now he's like, when you're in these 2 things, and you're not busy doing something, this is when the thoughts come in. This is when you lose control of the khatarat, and this is when the khatarat go to the next level. So the most important thing you can do to someone that's stuck in these thoughts is get them busy in something. Please write that down. Get busy, do something. Don't sit idle. Get busy, do something, keep moving. And sometimes the way to get out of ajiz and kasal is actually to involve yourself in something. Just get up and start doing something. The more you sit back, the more you do nothing, the more the khatarat just keep bombarding you, keep coming. فهمتم? Now he says, so these thoughts, let's put them in the middle, right? These khatarat, these thoughts are in the middle. They come from ajiz and kasal, right? Inability and a lack of will. That's where they come from. But what comes from it? He says, tafrit, neglect. You don't do nothing. Neglect. You don't do your chores. You don't do your homework. You don't go to work. You don't do anything. You become a loser. You become a 30-year-old dude still at home, not because you're saving up, because you're not moving forward in life. One is you're saving up so you stay at home. That's different. Like you're stacking. So this is like a smart move here. Another is just like, whatever, dude. Whatever. So he's like, the first thing that comes is negligence. You don't care about, you don't fulfill the, he says the second thing is hasara, regret. Once you get to 35, 36, 37, 38, you start saying, oh man, I wasted my life, yo. Regret. And then he says after that is nadam. Hasara and nadam, nafsu shay, same thing. Nadam is like remorse and regret. وَالْمُتَمَنِّي لَمَا فَاتِ الْمُبَاشِرَةِ الْحَقِيقَةِ. Look at the depth of his psychology. He says the one who's just caught on hopes, mutamanni. Mutamanni from the word amani. Mutamanni, the one who's just always, yeah, I could do this, I could do that. He says, وَالْمُتَمَنِّي لَمَّا فَاتَتْهُ مُبَاشِرَةُ الْحَقِيقَةِ. Since the mutamanni has lost the ability to actually do the physical real thing, بِحِسِّهِ, he has started to take pleasure from imagining the form inside of his mind. Do you guys get that? You guys get that? It's like the guy, he can't get it. So now that he can't get it, he's dropped his bar. Where he goes, since I can't get it anymore, I'll take pleasure and comfort in the fact that I could just think about it. And that's what he becomes satisfied with. That's what he explains he becomes satisfied with. He says he becomes content with just imagining and thinking about it rather than actually achieving it. He goes for إِنَّمَا مَثَلَهُ مَثَلَ الْجَائِعِ. He's like just like a person who's starving and thirsty, hungry, and just daydreaming about food because he can't get to it. Now, he says, وَإِنَّمَا شَرَفَ النَّفْسِ. He says that the sharaf of your soul, the highest point or the honor of your soul and the purity and the cleansiness of your heart lies in بِأَنْ يَنْفِي عَنْهُ كُلُّ خَطَرَ لَا حَقِيقَةَ لَهَا. The purity of your mind and heart lies in what? Pushing away, this is his words, pushing away every thought that has no haqiqah behind it. What does haqiqah mean? Reality. How many of us are sitting there 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour thinking about something there's no haqiqah to it at all? And you're worried about stuff with no haqiqah. You're stressing over stuff, no haqiqah. And you're getting anxiety over things that have no haqiqah to it. They have no reality to them. So I'm going to read it again what he says. He says, إِنَّمَا شَرَفُ النَّفْسِ. The glory of your heart and soul and purity of your heart and the cleanliness, وَأُلُوِهَا, raising your mind and your heart, lies in pushing away every khatara that has no haqiqah to it. No haqiqah. وَلَا يَرْضَى, and don't be happy. Do not be content أَنْ يَقْتَرَهَا بِبَالِهِ, with letting it come to you. وَيَنْفَعُ لِنَفْسِهِ مِنْهَا. And then he says, but rather push it away completely. Push it away completely. Is everyone understanding this? This is very, very important stuff, man. Very, very, because it starts, I had a good friend, I will say, that I was working with. And this young man, he felt that everyone looking at him could see one fault that he had. Everyone. It became so intrusive into his mind and heart. He lost all ability to go out into public. But the basis of it started with this one khatar, this one thought that he allowed to set. It may come one time. Like, does everyone look at me? I'm sweating right now. Like, then I'm like obsessing over it. No, they're gonna see me sweat next week, so no, I'm not gonna go. You guys are like, I didn't even notice you were sweating. Like, what happened is that thought came and it sat. And I could talk about it in detail, but it just went really, really far until he lost a lot of control, right? It became very, very detrimental. Very, very detrimental. So, like, understand what he's saying here is so important to our health and our spirituality. It's very, very important, and we take it so lightly, right? We take it so lightly. So, let's keep going. He says, Now, can we save it for the end?
Yes.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Listen closely. He says, ثُمَّ الْخَطَرَاتِ بَعْدُ أَقْسَامْ تَدُورُ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أُصُولٍ. He says, let all of your thoughts rotate around 4 categories only. 4 categories only. Number 1, خطرات يستجلب بها منافع الدنيا. Thoughts about bringing more benefit from the world. Like, how am I get paid? Right? How am I going to bring more money in? Number 1. Number 2, خطرات يستدفع بها مضار الدنيا. The thoughts about how I can protect from losing dunya. You with me? So 2 about dunya. What are they? Simply put, gain and prevent loss of what? Dunya. So what do you think the next 2 are? Gain and loss of akhirah. He says number 3 is وَالْخَطَرَاتْ يَسْتَجْلِبُ بِهَا مَصَالِ الْآخِرَةِ. Thoughts about how to gain more masalih, good in the akhirah. And number 4, thoughts about how to protect oneself from يَسْتَدْفَعُ الْمَضَارِ الْآخِرَةِ, the loss or harm in the akhirah. He's like, these are 4 areas that you should rakiz, like focus your thought on these 4 areas. Anytime you're thinking, if it's like, I wonder what she's going to wear tomorrow, you should be like, whoa, hold on, yo. Like, it ain't A, it ain't B, it ain't C, it ain't D. I'm good, yo, back over here. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I wonder what they're thinking about me right now. A, B, C. No. At first it's going to take some work. But after a while, those won't even come anymore. After a while, you're naturally like, why would I focus on that? Like, I don't have time for that up here. Like, I need my mind focused on these 4 things. So he goes, فَلْيَحْصُرْ خَطَرَاتُ وَأَفْكَارِ. Like, focus, hasara, like restrict your khatarat and fikr, your thoughts and your fikr, your soch, your thinking. وَهُمُومِهِ, and all of your hum, what you think about again, same thing. فِي هَذِهِ الْأَقْسَامِ أَرْبَعَةٍ. Everything, only in these 4 categories. And it's very balanced, right? It's very balanced. How can I get more dunya? Like one time Umar bin Khattab walked into the masjid and it was like 11 a.m. And he sees this dude just sitting in the masjid. And he's like, what are you doing here? He takes his stick and he like chases him out the masjid. He's like, go to work. Like, it's the middle of it's 11 a.m. Why are you just sitting here? So working for your dunya is a beautiful, al-farida ba'd al-farida. The Prophet ﷺ said, talabul ma'ash, seeking out livelihood is a hard obligation after prayer. So like, going to work is part of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like we said, being busy protects the mind from these thoughts coming in. Everyone with me? Right? So understand the value of working for your dunya is very healthy for you. How many of your grandparents won't retire yet because they're like, nah, I ain't about to retire. The moment I retire, I'm going to die. I feel like that. That's what they feel like. Because what? There's nothing to do. So that gives us purpose too. That gives us a feeling of being needed. It gives us a feeling of a reason, right? So that's definitely part of our mental health and our health of our deen, that you're focused on your dunya too. So 4 areas that thought should be focused on. Fahimtum? Okay. So he says, فَمَا أَمْكَنَ اِجْتِمَاعُهُ مِنْهَا لَمْ يَتْرُكْهُ لِغَيْرِهِ. As much as possible, never leave one of these 4 thoughts for anything other than that, outside of that. وَإِذَا تَزَاحَمَتْ عَلَيْهِ خَطَرَاتٍ. When your khatarat, thoughts, تَزَاحَمَ. You know what izdiham is? A crowd. So he says, when your thoughts start to crowd you, like, sometimes it's just too much going on at one time, and you're just like, right? Look what he says. وَإِذَا تزاحمت عليه خطرات لتزاحم المتعلقات قدم الأهم الذي يخشى فوته وأخر الذي ليس بأهم ولا يخاف فوته. He says, when your thoughts become overwhelming due to your excessive involvement, he says, because you're too involved in things, this is what will cause overload here. Like, you know how sometimes we just over-engaged? Like you have no blank spots on your schedule? And the result of that is there's a lot of thoughts coming. So you're not able to think clearly. He says, what do you do in that case? He says, here's the rule. قَدِّمْ أَهَمْ. Always put the thought first that is most pressing. Aham means most important. الَّذِي يَخْشَى فَوْتِ. The thing that you can lose it if you don't put it forward. Everyone understand what he's saying at this point? You have a lot of thoughts going on right now, right? Yeah. So like, I don't know what to do at this moment. He says, so what you do is look at which of them is most important. Number one. After that, you look at which one, yakhsha fawta. What does that mean? It can be lost. It can be lost. That's the one you put forward. Put that thought forward and focus on that thought. Going forward, okay? He says, وَبَقِيَ قِسْمَانْ آخَرَانِ. He's like, there's two more categories I want to talk about. أَحَدُهُمَا مُهِمْ لَا يَفُوتْ. He says that the first one is something very important, but you won't lose it. Important, but it won't be lost if you don't think about it or do it right now. وَالثَّانِي غَيْرْ مُهِمْ وَلَكِنْ يَفُوتْ. The second thing is not muhim, not important, but you'll miss out. FOMO. FOMO, right? He says, so now you got thoughts. If I don't check Instagram right now, is it muhim? Let's be real.
No.
Not muhim. Will you miss it though? Will you miss something?
Yes.
So he's like, right there you learned how to put in order. You have muhim, that won't be folks, that you won't miss. He's on the next two categories now. It's important, but you won't miss. And then you have not important, but you'll miss it. You can obviously tell what he's going to tell us to do next. He says, فَفِي كُلِّ مِنْهُمَا مَا يَدْعُو إِلَىٰ تَقْدِيمِهِ فَهُنَا يَقَعْ تَرَدُّدُ وَالْحَيْرَةُ. He says, this is hard. You don't know what to do. This thing's not important, but I'm going to miss it. This thing is important, but I won't miss it. What do? He says, فَإِنْ قَدَّمَ الْمُهِمْ خَشْيَ فَوَاتِ مَا دُونَهُ. If you put in the important thing first, then you're going to fear that you're going to miss out on the other thing. وَإِنْ قَدَّمَ مَا. If you put the other one forward, so on and so forth. So he says, وَكَذَلِكَ يَعْرِضُ لَهُ أَمْرَانِ. He says, this is where you have to use your intelligence and learn how to give preference to certain things. And what he says is this. This is the rule that he gives. Whatever brings the most benefit, put that one first over all other things. And from the other perspective, whichever pushes away the greatest harm, put that first over the other things. This is how you categorize which things to think about. This is the rule that he gives. He says, وَهِيَ إِيثَارٌ. It is to give preference. أَكْبَرَ الْمَصْلَحَتَيْنِ وَأَعْلَاهَا. Give preference to the thing that will give most benefit. Right? And then he says, وَإِنْ فَاتَتْ مَصْلَحَةً الَّتِي هِيَ دُونَهُ. You'll miss out something lower, but you put forward the thing that has the most benefit. And he says, on the other side, when it comes to harm, he says, دُخُولْ فِي أَدْنَى مُفْسِدٍ. The one with the least amount of harm, on that side is the one you enter into, not with the most amount of harm. Sayyid? Okay. MashaAllah. 40 minutes. Good. Let's go forward, inshaAllah ta'ala. Fahimtum, inshaAllah, everyone? MashaAllah. Save the question, inshaAllah, at the end, inshaAllah. Okay. Next thing he says. He says, وَأَعْلَى الْفِكْرِ وَأَجْلَاهَا وَأَنْفَعَهَا مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ وَدَارُ الْآخِرَةِ. He says, the a'la al-fikr, the highest thing of thinking about, the highest thing that you should be concerned and allowing your mind to focus on is, and the most beneficial, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ وَدَارُ الْآخِرَةِ. That which is for Allah in the final place. Darul Akhirah, your final home. فَمَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ أَنْوَعٍ. He's like, there are, let me see how many, I think there's 5. Yes. He's like, there's 5 types of thoughts for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So So first thing he said, guys, is the highest thing that you can think about is that which is for Allah and that which is for Dar al-Akhirah. But he's like, you're like, okay, what do you mean think about? Right? Whenever when someone says think about Allah, you're like, dude, like, what do I do? So he's like, there's 5 things. There's 5 things you can think about when we talk about the mind thinking about Allah. You guys ready for them? Number 1. Al-fikr fi ayatil munazzil. He says, letting your mind think about the ayats, the verses, or the signs of Allah that He has revealed in book form. Number 1. Number 2. And he says, he's like thinking about that. Not just reading them, but actually reading them and contemplating over them. Understanding them. Number 2. Thinking about the ayatil mashhuda. Thinking about His signs within the creation. You know, the Salaf, they say there's 2 kitab Allahs. Like, oh shoot, I ain't coming to Qalam no more. That's a new religion, yo. I knew Qalam was up to something. Brother just said there's 2 kitab Allahs. So, nah, yo, chill out. Hold on. There's 2 kitab Allahs. Al-kitab Allah yuqra, the kitab Allah you read, and the kitab Allah you see. The kitab Allah you see is the creation of Allah. The sunsets in Texas, Dallas are beautiful. That's ayatullah. That's an ayah you read. When I say read, I mean it pulls you to Allah. It pulls you to reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when they say there's 2 kitab Allahs, what they mean is there's 2 things you're going to read and pull you towards Allah. One is the kitab of Allah in written form. The other is the kitab of Allah in the beautiful sunset. Kitab Allah in the biology of the creation of different animals. Like, that's amazing. You ever just turn on, like, high definition, like, the Discovery Channel? Yeah, come on. I'm the only one that, like... Huh?
Planet Earth.
Planet Earth, yo. Like, seriously, if you just turn... Is it Netflix, Planet Earth? Yo, if you just, next time, if you gotta go on Netflix, you just have to. Like, turn on Planet Earth and, yo, just sit there and just, like, subhanAllah. Like, it will really pull you in. Because it's really miraculous and amazing. And like that whole show could just be a moment of like, subhanAllah, dhikr, straight up. Like, yo, I don't want to read Quran right now. I just want to like look at Allah's creation. Planet, what's it called? Planet Earth? You go right there. So these are 2 things. Everyone got those 2? Number 3. Al-fikr fi ala'ihi. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Thinking over the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Contemplating over those ala wa ihsanihi. He says these 3 things will pull you. Listen to this, Ajib. He says, تَسْتَخْرِجْ مِنَ الْقَلْبِ مَعْرِفَةَ اللَّهِ. These 3 things, yo. Guys, he says these 3 things will bring ma'rifah of Allah to your heart. You guys know what ma'rifah is? Ma'rifah of Allah is that highest level you're supposed to achieve. Of recognizing who Allah is. It's like halakha, like 3,000. Like we on lesson 13. Like ma'rifah is like when you recognize Allah, right? That's like towards the end, right? When you're old and you're about to, that's ma'rifah. He says these 3 things will bring you ma'rifah. Okay, number 4. Al-fikra fi uyub an-nafs. Ah, yes. To contemplate and think over the faults of your own lower self. Man, I procrastinate too much, yo. Man, yo. Like, look at the uyub of the self. In order to better yourself. Don't become fixated on your faults. That can become dangerous. But it's important to highlight the faults so that you're able to keep becoming better. Like, how do athletes become top game? They always never see themselves as perfect. I gotta get better. What did Kobe say? 4 a.m.? Right? 4 a.m. Like, if he ever got to the point where he thought he was it, then he would never continue to progress. It's only when he sees the faults that he continually becomes better. So number 4 is what?
Contemplating.
Yes, contemplating. Oh, and he says, هذه الفكر عظيمة النفع وهي باب كل خير. He's like, this particular one has a lot of benefit for yourself, and it's bab kulli khair. It opens up the door to a lot of good. And he says, you know what it does too? وَتَأْثِيرُهَا فِي كَسْرِ نَفْسِ الْأَمَّارَةِ. It breaks the lower self too. You know the lower self, that amara bisu? Okay, so everyone know there's 3 types of nafs, right? We have to really briefly go over this to understand this, okay? The Quran talks about 3 different nafs. When I say nafs, I mean inner dispositions to morality, to ethics, to doing what is right. The first one is nafsul mutma'inna. Nafsul mutma'inna is a nafs that likes to do good and only wants to do good. So it's like that pious friend you got that's always like, yo bro, let's go to a halakha. Right? Good boy right here, right? MashaAllah. Y'all got a good crew here, MashaAllah. Like that's mutma'inna. He never even wants to do bad stuff. Like she's always talking about good stuff. Mutma'inna. Number 2 is nafs lawama. This is like the friend that's like you. That's like, want to do good, get caught in bad, astaghfir Allah, let's go to the halakha, drop some money in the sadaqah box. We shouldn't have did that. So it wants to do good, right? You know they say the sadaqah box in the masjid gets full because of that, right? That's why the box is full. Everybody like, yo man, that was a bad, gotta get some sadaqah man. Let's go. Clear that up. Lafzul lawama. And what's the last one? Amara bisu. This is like that shaitan friend that you guys just X out. Like this dude always trying to smoke. He's always trying to go to bed. He's always trying to go. Yo, bro, man, you just shaitan. This dude, you cut out your life. I had one of those. Everything I did bad in my jahiliyyah was that one friend, yo. I look back at myself. I was like, every time I did something really bad, I was with that dude. That was that shaitan, yo. So amara bisu. 3 nafs. Everyone got those 3 nafs?
Yeah.
So he says this 4th thought is the most beneficial for your nafs, but it's the hardest hitting against the nafs al-amara. Everyone understand what he's saying? وَمَتَى كُسِرَتْ. And then he goes forward. وَصَارَ فَحَيَّ الْقَلْبِ وَدَارَتْ كلمته في مملكته وبث أمراؤه وجنوده في مصالحه. He's just talking now about how when you let these thoughts come in, it completely crushes down that nafsul amara, that lower self, and it raises up that nafsul mutma'inna. Alright, that's 4 thoughts. Are we there? Number 5. Number 5, inshallah. Al-fikra fi wajib al-waqt wa wadhifatihi. The hardest thing, guys, is to be present in the moment and realize what I should be doing right now. Not what I'm going to do after halakha. Not what I'm doing tomorrow. Wajibul waqt. What is the necessity upon me right now? He says the next thing that you should allow your mind to focus on is wajibul waqt. What is necessary right now? If your mom is with you and she's talking to you, there's a wajibul waqt. It's only her. When you're married and your spouse is talking to you, that's wajibul waqt. Like, some of us always give half of ourselves. Some of us always give half of ourselves, not our whole self. Wajibul waqt, they don't realize that. Right now, what was that other Incredibles? Was Incredibles the superhero one?
Yeah.
So there was one scene, the stretchy dude.
Frozone. Yeah.
Frozone. So Frozone was about to go out with his wife,
Oh yeah.
and then she's like, "Nah, you're supposed to go out with me tonight." And the sign, I guess, goes on that he's supposed to go save some lives. So she's like, "No, he's looking for the suit." And he's like, "Honey, where'd you put my suit? And, where's my super suit, right?" And he's like, "Honey, it's for the greater good." And what does she say? I am the greater good. Like, I can hear my wife or my mom saying that and being true. Like, a lot of times we're like, I gotta go do this, I gotta go do this, my friends need me, this and that. But no, you have to look at what is necessary on you right now. And many times it's the people around us that are the wajibul waqt. So he said, so this is really heavy because most of our thoughts are some other time. Do you know what I mean by that? Like right now, many of us are maybe thinking about tonight, or tomorrow, or the next day. But we miss the wajibul waqt. Do you get what I mean by that? So look what he says. He says, Al-fikra Number 5, right? في واجب الوقت ووظيفة. What is wajib right now, and what do I need to do right now? So right now, for me, it's like put my heart into this halaqah and focus on, for me, I'm talking about me, to get this message to everyone here as best as I understand it. For you, you're here. You're not at home yet. The Qalam students got like tomorrow's vacation. So all the Qalam students like, yo, we out. Wajib al-waqt, my mind is on the plane already, right? No, wajib al-waqt right now is focusing in this halaqah, getting the benefit of this moment. But what happens? You're at school thinking about work, you're at work thinking about school, you at work thinking about home, you're at home thinking about work. When did you ever live life? You feel me? And then at work, you're like, I need to pray. And in prayer, you're thinking about work. SubhanAllah. And attach this to prayer. Imagine how your prayer is going to be. Imagine how your prayer is going to be if you're just like, yo, right now. That's it. فهمتم? So look what he says. He says, وَجَمَعَ الْهَمْ كُلْ عَلَيْهِ. Put all of your hum on this moment right now. Right now. فَالْعَارِفِ. Look what he says. الْعَارِفِ ibn waqtihi. Yo, you can write this down. This is like Al-Arif ibn waqtihi. The Arif of Allah, Arif Ma'rifah. The one who knows Allah. Al-Arif is the son of the moment. Talk about YOLO. We rep YOLO for real. Like Muslim, we're supposed to live in the moment. Like, you got to put this in context of everything we're talking about when I say live in the moment. Al-Arif ibn waqtihi. The Arif, the one who recognizes Allah, is Ibn of the moment, son of the moment. Meaning, I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future, I'm right now, right here. How difficult is it for some of us to bring our minds to this moment right now? Y'all with me? Look what he says next. فَإِنْ أَضَاءَهُ. If you lose this moment right now, ضَاءَتْ عَلَيْهِ مَصَالِحُهُ كُلَّ. If you lose this moment, you lost all the benefit of this moment. Like, you didn't get the moment. You were here, but you weren't here. فَجَمِيعُ الْمَصَالِحِ إِنَّمَا تَنْشَأُ مِنَ الْوَقْتِ. All of your benefit come from the moment, the time that you're in. Waqt. The moment in time you're in. وَإِنْ ضَيَّعَهُ لَمْ يَسْتَدِرْكُ أَبَدًا. You lose a moment, you never get it back. You lose it. How many people say, if my mom was here right now? If my mom was here right now, what would I do? Right? You never get it back. It's gone. That's what he's saying. Al-Arif ibn Waqt. Realize the moment. Live in that moment right there. Fully hold on to it. قال الشافعي. Imam Shafi, he says, صحبت الصوفية. فلم أستفد منهم سوى الحرفين. Imam Shafi says, I spent time with the pious people. فلم أستفد منهم. I only learned 2 things from them. One of them, al-waqtu kas-sayf. Al-waqt sayfun. Time is a sword. فَإِنْ قَطَعْتُ وَإِنْ لَمْ قَطَعَكَ. You can either cut with it or it cuts you. Imam Shafi. Time is a sword. You either cut with it or it cuts you. Somebody's getting cut. No matter what. Somebody's getting cut. Because time is ticking. Al-waqtu sayfun. Time is a sword. فَإِنْ قَطَعَتْهُ وَإِنْ لَمْ قَطَعَكَ. وذكر الكلمة الأخرى. فوقت الإنسان هو عمره في حقيقة. Waqt is your life. وهو مادة. And it's your means for hayatul abadiyya, for the rest of your eternal life. في النعيم. Like, you think about it from this perspective. One moment has potential, eternal potential, like the potential in an instant. You say subhanallah right now. That moment has now gained infinite potential of khair for you. Because we believe in hereafter, which never ends. So each moment in itself has infinite potential for gain. Similarly, infinite potential for loss. Or you could just use it doing nothing. Right? SubhanAllah. Everyone cool? وَمَادَةُ مَعِيشَتُهُ ذَنْكَ فِي الْعَذَابِ. Again, he says it could also be on the other side. وَهُوَ يَمُرُّ أَسْرَعُ مِنْ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. Yo, he says time flies, man, faster than the clouds. Time flies faster than the clouds. I can't even explain this. That's real. The older you get, you realize, like, you remember when you were like 14? Somebody here's like, oh, 14 now. No, but seriously, like, and I'm not gonna say my age, but like, I look at myself and I'm like, my wife reminds me, but she's like, you've been saying that age for like 3 years. Like, every time someone asks me how long you've been Muslim, I've been saying the same thing. It's like, will you raise the number? You keep saying 10 years, it ain't 10 years no more, dude. You've been Muslim mad long. You raise that number up, man. But you know, on the real, you don't. The funny thing about growing old, what I'm realizing, is like you don't see yourself as you're seen. You get what I'm saying? Like the 16-year-old up in here, he looks at me like, dang man, that's old. That dude's old. But me, I'm looking around like, yeah. You don't see yourself age. You don't feel it. So he's like, yo, tamurru marra sahab, yo. It's quick. It's quick. All right, I gotta go forward because there's so much so much more in this section, and it's almost 1 hour right now. Okay, so he says next. Okay, here we go. Yes, he says, understand, anna wurud al-khatir la yadur. Thoughts that come to you don't harm you. What? You just been talking about control your thoughts. Listen closely. Khatir, a fleeting thought that comes will not harm you. Wa inna ma yadurru. The harm comes from keeping it in when it comes or bringing the thought on. He says, فَالْخَاطِرْ كَالْمَارْ عَلَى الطَّرِيقِ. He says, a thought is like a stranger you walk past on the campus. Yo, when I read this, I was like, ajib. You live in the city, like Northeast. How many people you walk past? Millions. Do you ever you don't even look at people up north. Right? Like, I'm just saying, like, you just walk past. You don't say hi to everybody. Right? You know what I'm saying? Jersey, right? Jersey. Come on, Jersey.
No, you don't talk to anybody.
You don't talk to nobody.
If someone says hi to you, you're like, what's your problem?
Yeah, thank you. So he's like, the thoughts that come are like that mar ala tariq. Just walk past the dude. Just let the thought come and go. When I read it, I was like, subhanAllah. We get so, he's like, the problem is, when it comes, you're like, hi. How you doing, thought? No, that's a bad idea. And you start arguing with the thought. You get in a debate with your own brain. Like, why are you debating your brain? Keep moving. Seriously, you can't out-rationalize your own brain. And that's what we sit there and, subhanAllah, man. He says, فَالْخَاطِرْ كَالْمَارْ عَلَى الطَّرِيقِ. He's not going to harm you unless he says, فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَدِعِهِ وَتَرَكْتَهُ مَرَّ وَانْصَرَفَ عَنْكَ. He's like, if you let this thought keep walking and don't call him, he'll keep walking. But you, وَإِن إِسْتَدَيْتَهُ, if you call him, look what he says, سَحَرَكْ بِحَدِيثِهِ. He'll do magic on you with his words. You start talking like, dang, that's an interesting thing. SubhanAllah. وَخَدَعَهُ وَغَرُورُهُ. His trickery, his غرور. وَهُوَ أَخَفَ الشَّيْء عَلَى النَّفْسِ الْفَارِغَ الْبَاطِلَةِ وَأَثْقَلَ الشَّيْء عَلى الْقَلْبِ وَالنَّفْسِ الشَّرِيفِ السَّمَاوِيَّةِ الْمُطْمَئِنَّةِ وَهُوَ أَخَفُ الشَّيْء. He's like, this is very dangerous, very light on the nafs al-farigha, وَأَثْقَلُ الشَّيْء, but very heavy on the heart that is connected with Allah. Now, continuing forward, just a little bit more, inshallah. We're almost done. Just because of time, I'm trying to see what I can leave behind. Okay, just have like 5 more minutes, inshallah, and then we'll open up for questions. وَقَدْ رَكَّبَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى فِي الْإِنسَانِ نَفْسًا أَمَّارَةً وَنَفْسًا مُطْمَئِنَّةً. He's like, look, understand this. You have in yourself nafsul mutma'inna and nafsul amara. Do I have to explain those again? Nafsul amara, the one that always wants to do evil. Nafsul mutma'inna, the nafs that always wants to do good. He says Allah has put these both inside of you. وَهُمَا مُتَعَادِيَتَانِ. They're enemies to one another. These two go against one another. Those two friends you got, you with me, right? Those two friends, the good guy and that, they're opposites. Okay? Cool. فَكُلُّ مَا خَفَّ عَلَى هَذَا. Whatever is easy for this one, it's hard on the other one. You understand what I mean by that? So look, two friends. One friend going out to such and such place is very easy and enjoyable. But for the other friend, going to that place is very hard. I can't do that. But the same thing that's easy for him to do, for this guy is hard to do. Let's go to a lecture. This is like, nah, yo, it's going to be like an hour, yo. I can't sit for an hour. This is going to be just babbling on. And I was like, yo, an hour is easy, yo. You see how the difference? You see what he's saying? Whatever is easy for the nafsul mutma'inna is hard on the nafsul ammara, and vice versa. Does this make sense to everyone? So, like tahajjud, nafsul mutma'inna is like, yeah, yo, let's go. Nafsul ammara is like, hates it. No, And the more you do it, the more it's pushing it down. The more you keep missing fajr, nafsul ammara is like, I love it. Everyone with me? Okay. Because you got to understand how this works. You got to understand how they work, how they react to one another. So he says, وَكُلُّ مَا تَلَذَّتْ بِهِ هَذَا تَأَلَّمَتْ بِهِ أُخْرَى. Whatever one of them finds pleasure in, the other one hates it. Naturally. Does this make sense? Okay. فَلَيْسَ عَلَى النَّفْسِ الْأَمَّارَةِ أَشَقُّ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ عَمَلْ لِلَّهِ. There's nothing harder on the nafsul ammara than doing actions for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like you go help someone and don't let anyone know. Your nafsul ammara is going to be kicking and screaming like a 2-year-old. We gotta tell somebody. We gotta tell somebody. We gotta tell someone I'm fasting. Come on. It cannot take amal lillah. It hates it. But you gotta keep doing it. Like, all right, you don't like it? I got you more. Like, subhanAllah, do you see how like we're on a whole different level now? We're talking about fighting against an inner lower like shaitan inside of ourselves that we're pushing, but we're consciously aware of that and we're learning how to push that thing down. This is amazing, amazing stuff that he's teaching. Okay, so then he goes, we're almost done inshallah. وَإِيثَارِ رِضَاهُ عَلَى هَوَاهُ وَلَيْسَ لَهَا أَنْفَعْ مِنْهُ وَلَيْسَ عَلَى النَّفْسِ الْمُطْمَئِنَّةِ. There is nothing harder on nafs al-mutma'inna, the good friend. أَشَقُّ مِنْ عَمَلْ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. There is nothing harder on that than doing action for other than Allah. That he hates it. Like, what are we wasting our time for? وَإِجَابَةِ دَاعِي الْهَوَىٰ. It doesn't like to answer the call of its own nafs. So he goes into that and he keeps explaining how you have to offset one with the other. Next thing. فَالْقَلْبِ لَوْ فَارِغ. He says the heart or mind is a blank slate. Like tabla rusul, right? He says it's a blank slate. Who is that? Locke?
Yep.
Okay, so he says it's a blank slate. But he says, فَالْخَوَاتِرْ نُقُوشْ. Your thoughts are what writes in that slate, carves into it. That's the chalk on the board. فَكَيْفَ يَلِيقُ بِالْعَاقِلِ. How can an intelligent person أَن تَكُونَ نُقُوشْ لَوْحِهِ. How can you allow lies, ghurur, trickery, false hopes, and all these things to be written onto your slate? لَا حَقِيقَةَ لَهُ. That don't have any reality to them. فَأَيُّ الْحِكْمَةِ وَعِلْمٍ وَهُدًى يَنْقَشُ مَعَ هَذِهِ النُّقُوشِ. How can you write hikmah, knowledge, good stuff onto that that slate, when it's filled with all that other stuff? So what he's going to say, explain right now, he says, if you don't, فَإِلَّمْ يُفَرِّغَ الْقَلْبِ. If you don't rid the mind from khawatir radi, low base thoughts, لَمْ يَسْتَقِرْ فِي khawatir nafi'. You can never bring the good khatir inside. I'm going to say that again. This is very important. If you do not clear the mind, nashhat, if you do not clear the mind, the qalb, from the lower thoughts, lam yastaqir, the good thoughts will never ever find a place to rest, to stop. Like you're walking down the street and all the people are surrounding you. If all the people surrounding you are the low lives, the other people can't come. Just that example we gave before. But if you push that away, then they're allowed to come. فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَسْتَقِرُ إِلَّا فِي مَحَلْ فَارِغ. He says those thoughts can only come to a place that's been farid, that's been emptied. That's been emptied. So he says a poem. It's one of my, I really love this poem. I learned it as a student. He says, أتاني هواها قبل أن أعرف الهوى. Her love came to me before I learned what love was. فصادف قلب خاليا فتمكنت. So it hit a heart that was empty, so it stayed. Oh, no? Nobody got it, Isa. That was beautiful.
It was deep.
Right? It was deep. I'm going to say it again. No, it's beautiful, yo. Atani hawaha. Her love came to me. قبل أن أعرف الهوى. Before I even knew what love was. فصادف قلبا. It hit a heart خاليا that was empty. فتمكن. So her love stayed. Aww. Thank you. Okay. I know, right? Everyone here like, yo, dude, we are not married. This is not fair. ولهذا كثير. That's y'all fault, yo. ولهذا كثير من أرباب السلوك بنوس. I'm just joking. Don't take that personal. You know, boycott. Like, no, man. Allah, yo, listen. There's a dua there's a specific hadith about the one making dua for marriage. That Allah subhanahu haqqa ala Allah. It's haqq on Allah to answer the dua who's asking for a spouse. SubhanAllah, man. But brothers got to step up, man. Honestly, most of the problems I find is on this side. For real. Nah, I'm just what I noticed. Alright, let's get back to the point. وَلِهَذَا كَثِيرٌ مِنْ أَرْبَابِ السُّلُوكِ. He says many of the scholars of suluk and purification of the heart بَنُوا سُلُوكَهُمْ عَلَى حِفْظِ الْخَوَاتِرِ. This concept of protecting the thoughts is so important that many of the scholars of suluk, their whole concept of purification is just this. Watch what you think about. That's it. That's all they focus on. He says, وَأَلَّا يُمَكِّنَ الْخَوَاتِرِ يَدْخُلُ الْقُلُوبِ. So basically what he says here, I'm going to paraphrase because time is up. It's been 1 hour and 7 minutes. He basically says this. Don't focus on nothing being in your heart. That will never happen. Rather, focus on just constantly bringing positivity in. Positive imagery, positive thoughts, positive actions. Never ever allow the brain to just go on autopilot. For the next week or so, you're directing your thoughts where you want it to go. You're directing your brain what you want it to think about. That is controlling the thoughts. So what do you push it towards? Good things. And that's a bit different for everyone. He says the Sharia will tell you what's good. Your aql will tell you what's good. Like, you will know what is good, right? But the main thing, and we're going to stop here and talk about something else, is, again, and I hate to bash it, but I'm going to do it. Social media does not allow us to control our thoughts. Because we're not allowing control over what's coming inside of our heads, what's coming inside of our eyes, and so on and so forth. So, anyways, he continues and goes forward, and he talks about just constantly allowing khair, good things, to constantly be inside. Whenever you have that negative thought, immediately, astaghfirullah. Immediately, astaghfirullah, and push it. But don't, remember, you're walking past someone on the street. Don't say hi. Just keep walking. Please remember that example. Just don't say hi, keep walking. That's the best example. We just start to argue what to do. Why are you here? This is my street. Like, dude, just keep walking, and the guy goes on the way. So I want to stop here. And I'm going to answer questions, but first I want you guys to reflect and tell me, how was your 2-day social media fast? Last week, for those who weren't here, some of us did a 2-day social media. How many people actually did it? Okay, that's what's up. Okay, can someone share, someone who's on it a lot, share some reflections they had from that 2 days? Jasmine, bismillah.
Yeah, so I'm not into a lot of things, but I'm really into Twitter because it's
very addictive.
Unto what?
I'm really into Twitter.
Oh, really?
But you really can't, you can't control what comes up, but then
Yeah.
sometimes that's the best part because it's really funny.
Exactly.
But then other things that are just really inappropriate will pop up and you're like, dang it. So I got rid of it, and then I don't know, something in me, I was like, let me delete it completely. And that's what I did. And it's still deleted.
It's still gone.
Gone.
Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts takbir. MashaAllah. Okay, so but any feelings? I want to know someone to tell me, was there a struggle? Nashhat.
I felt really hyped, right when we did it for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And then I was just pondering really hard about everything and anything.
You see, you had time to think.
And it felt weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It felt, that's what I was hoping someone brought up. It felt weird to be by yourself.
You felt off too, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. Many of us are uncomfortable with our own selves.
Yeah.
So an escape from myself is social media real quick. Because I don't have to think about me and life and whatever. So that's what I really was hoping to touch upon. So did you go back on yet?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. MashaAllah, man. MashaAllah.
Snapchat was on.
Snapchat? There's too many now. I can't even keep track. Anyone else? Yes.
I didn't personally do it because I wasn't here last week.
Yeah.
I've done it in the past, and I just have a question.
Yeah.
You were talking about our thoughts and how we need to control the thoughts that we have, and then I think for me personally, it just gets so difficult and overwhelming when sometimes social media is my out when I'm too much pondering about my life that it gets really overwhelming because I'm just thinking too much constantly.
Yeah.
And it does build up kind of a little bit of an anxiety.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that? How do you, let's say you're going to cut social media out of your life. When social media was your out of reality, when reality just became really overwhelming.
No, but see, that's running away, isn't it? Wallahu alam. I feel that's
I guess what you replace it with.
No, so what I'm saying is we all need an out, right? We all need an out. The Prophet himself needed an out, alayhi salatu wassalam. And that's why for him, it was ju'ila qurrata ayni fi. So that was his out. Now, I'm not saying we're at that level, but what I'm saying is that everyone needs an out. But, yeah, I'm worried that out isn't an out because it also creates other anxieties and thoughts as well. So, wallahu alam, I think we can have a longer discussion on it, on things that are healthy outs. I just don't feel that is a healthy out. Personally, that's my feeling. I know some of us have jobs that we have to be on. That's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about wasting time, scrolling for hours. Right?
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you know that you mentioned that guy who, I forgot what you said exactly, but it was something that he felt people would notice about him internally that he thought people were seeing externally. So what do you do when it gets to that point?
I'm not an expert on that. I can't.
Oh.
He went to someone else that we both know, and they were helping him.
I'm not an expert either, but that's one that I think you just have to be logical with yourself. How logical is it that everyone's noticing XYZ thing? And I think you have to break out of the idea that everyone is looking at you specifically. So this is something that if you think about when you first put on hijab, if you wear hijab regularly, you think oh, everyone's looking at me. But in reality, it's no one's looking at you. Nobody even knows that there's anything different. It's just you. So, and I agree with your social media. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah,
it's
but I'll tell you what we were doing with him, because I worked with the specialist, and a lot of it was just literally what she's saying is we were talking a lot in controlled circumstances, forcing him to go out and fight against that fear and so on and so forth. But it got very, very bad. And because he couldn't in the beginning stop the thought, and it just got too strong. So again, someone walking past on the street, guys, if it's not 4 things, if you want to remember 4 things you need to be thinking, if it's not one of these 4, what are those 4 at least? Because some people came late. What are those 4?
Gain
and loss in dunya are 2. Gain and loss in akhirah. If it's not one of these 4, khali balak. Khali balak. Literally. Yes.
Is the basis for this rhetoric, is it only based upon thoughts that aren't grounded foundationally in reality? What if they are somewhat, what if it's a trauma that you've experienced or something in reality that you've witnessed?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it repeatedly comes up, maybe when you just wake up, for example, right?
Yeah.
Would you use the same remedies to remedy
I,
that type of?
I would say, and I know my limit, I would say we need a specialist to help us with
In that
that.
kind of
Yes.